Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, featuring the sharpest minds in marketing, inspirational case histories, and weekly insights you can apply to your business. Find out why top CMOs rank this podcast among their favorites. Now, here's your host, Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
Hello, Renegade Thinkers. We're in a post-COVID world. And so every show, I feel it is important that we at least acknowledge that and the impact that it is having on everybody. So for example, I'm recording this from my home office, and my guest today is in his RV because that was the best place that Ed Rusch of Command Alkon. Of course, I'm recording these, by the way, late afternoon because that's the only time it's quiet enough around in my apartment for me to do that. That's when the dog goes out for a walk. Anyway, so my guest, Ed, you're the first to be in an RV. Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Well, it's such a great pleasure to be on the show. Thanks for having me, sir.
Well, you're welcome, and this is a tricky time for all of us. It's having the immediate impact. We just had an interesting conversation on how do you as a company go from a very traditional, and I think this theme is the whole theme for the show is business transformation. We're going to start with business transformation on a short term, what it means to take 400 or 500 people that used to be coming into an office and now suddenly are work. And then we'll talk about the larger business transformation of moving from, in a traditional industry and becoming a leading provider. And just so you know, it's kudos to your team. I'm talking to the audience. Is Command Alkon was a Fortune Fast Company, Innovative Company of the Year that was named earlier this year. They are in the logistics in that category, working with the construction industry, right? That's what you guys do, right, Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. We help build the amazing world around you.
There you go. Well, so here you were in a traditional industry of construction, and you had gone through a business transformation in terms of repositioning the company. And we'll talk about that, but let's talk about all the things that have happened since COVID. Let's first talk about workforce transformation. You mentioned to me that you've had to move everybody remotely. Talk a little bit about the challenges that you faced there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that everyone is really starting to see is the need to be resilient and adaptable and to be able to make smarter decisions faster as news breaks. Expect the unexpected is the cliche, but that's only becoming more and more true as opposed to less and less true.
It's hard to do, though, and it's so interesting that you said expect the unexpected. I totally agree. But how many contingency plans can a company have, right? I mean, and this is a contingency plan, frankly, that, you watch the Bill Gates video and, this is something that he saw 5 years ago, said, this is going to happen. Here's how we can prepare. It's like planning for a giant war. You need to get your muscles and operational strength together. But we didn't as a company. So I suspect many companies, we didn't as a country, pardon me, and we certainly, most companies aren't. I mean, you didn't have a what to do in a global pandemic plan in your drawer. Right?
No, absolutely not. Yeah. I think one of the things that was fortuitous for us as an organization are a couple things. Number one, just the pace of the industry. Though construction is pretty traditional and not necessarily the fashion-forward adopters of technology, there is a certain clock speed that happens in heavy construction, and in particular, the space of construction that we're in, which is concrete and asphalt and all the rocks and things that make those roads and bridges. And those things have a shelf life. Concrete can only be pliable in the drum of the truck for up to 90 minutes once it's left the plant. Asphalt needs to be cadenced out as that roadway gets resurfaced. So there is a mindset within the industry that ended up being really beneficial about a need for pace, a need for staging, a need to pivot on the fly. From an infrastructure perspective, it's almost part of the sort of daily work routine that our customers have.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And because you're in the software part of the business, certainly you in that transformation as an organization has helped you. You mentioned when we were chatting earlier about whether or not, now that you've moved your workforce to remote, that there will be a lot of conversations about whether or not we really all need to come to the office. And I'm curious, I thought that was such an interesting thought and a timely thought. And certainly you're in an RV to have this conversation. I'm upstairs, and the only reason we're having it now is because my wife is walking the dog. And, and as much as the guests, I'm sure wouldn't mind if we were doing video, seeing Louis, having me interrupt this conversation. So for me, not having a workplace is problematic. One, just because you're just not as well set up. And two, I miss the collaboration and I miss the people. I mean, we've scheduled what we call virtual coffee breaks. And now we've scheduled our Friday afternoon, a virtual happy hour. But, what are you doing with your team to try to get everybody together when they're used to working together?
Yes, I would agree with you. I would miss many of the same things. I love those co-creation, collaborative sessions that you have face-to-face with people, the ideation that can take place at a whiteboard in a room with some good snacks and coffee, right? And so we're not going to be able to do those things for this foreseeable future. But it does enlighten, I guess, the building up of different muscles within your sort of business repertoire and not being solely reliant on those types of environments in order to be successful.
Yep.
And so what we're finding out is, Zoom meetings and webinars are really more productive than they are sort of beyond the inter-office type of usages that we've used them in the past. And now they're becoming individualized. I also have implemented in my team a daily sort of virtual stand-up using these virtual tools. And so we're getting together and touching point as a team at the beginning of the day. And we're also doing a quick touch point at the end of the day and just doing a quick Robin, where do you need help? Are you plugged in? Something not working? What supplies do you need? Asking all those fundamental questions. And then the use of collaboration tools like Slack and Trello, we've had those, we're using them more. And we're finding out now that we're day 3 into this reality as a team, that we're not missing a beat at all. It's exciting.
On the marketing team.
Yes.
Yeah, which is great. And again, I think that, marketing teams tend to be agile thinkers and so forth. And it's interesting. I think that, there are tools that will help. One of the things that I heard you say that I want to make sure, and I'm sure many of the CMO listeners are having this thought, is how do I stay close to my people? And so a morning and an afternoon meeting, you might not have done that, right? You didn't do that in the office. And
No.
So on one hand, that might feel like you're sort of overly engaging. On the other hand, because we're sort of isolated now, right? It probably pays to over engage until you sort of find the equilibrium, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And those stand-ups I just described aren't necessarily 30 minutes or 60 minutes. We're not really putting together some arbitrary time and an agenda associated with that. It's okay. We get together, we hook the video thing up. If it's 6 minutes
right.
across my 9 people and everyone's good,
right, then
everyone's good.
Yeah.
Let's move on. And so it's not particularly onerous if you're thinking about it in those terms. But I will say, I think to combat the isolation and a team that's not necessarily used to having to self-manage as much every day, that you do have to reach out to one another, whether it's me to my folks, them amongst themselves, and be really intentional about doing that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you have, it's fun. I don't know if you've done a Zoom meeting with your 9 people, but it's definitely Hollywood Squares or Brady Bunch, right? And I've noticed that on Twitter that a number of people are sharing their Hollywood Squares or Brady Bunch moment, which is hilarious. But it's actually, it's kind of fun. And I'm sure the novelty will wear off. But we're all getting a kick out of it at Renegade, and we're looking forward to our first quarantinis, as they're called, where we're having a little quarantini contest on Friday afternoon, as we usually used to do at the office. So what's interesting here is, in many ways, this is forcing a business transformation on all of us to work virtually, to communicate better in that environment. And, I think you do bring up a really interesting point. There is no doubt that this is going to hurt the real estate business in a way that people didn't realize. And the longer this goes, the more likely it will hurt the business. I also think there will be the counter trend to this, which is, because there are people who've been working alone for a long time, and some of them will tell you, it gets old. and that, all these tools, at least so far, there is no substitute for the random watercolor thing. And then there's this other question of problem solving, where a group together in a room can solve a problem faster. It's just than they can virtually. But we'll see. We'll have to see. All right. Any last thoughts on this new business reality as a CMO leading a team virtually?
No, other than, our environment was more come to the office every day, the team's together, you're at your desks or you're at your workstations or in your offices. We've gone from that side of the equation, and the pendulum's gone all the way to the other side, to where everyone's untethered and working remotely. I think to your point that you just described, the reality is the healthy place or healthy balance is somewhere in the middle. And so do I think we go all the way back to office every day, 8 to 5 kind of environments after this is done? No. Do we have more intentional get-togethers with the team so that people aren't isolated, have those whiteboard collaborative co-creation type of opportunities together? Absolutely. Do managers and other leaders embrace more extended work times, flexible schedules, people working from different locations? Absolutely. I'm really encouraged, because I think at the end of all this, most everybody will be in a better spot with regards to healthy work configuration after this is over than maybe they were before this started.
I love your optimism. Perfect place for us to take a break.
Hey, it's Drew, and I wanted to have a quick conversation about turning lemons into lemonade. Here are the lemons. Skiing, Park City, January 11th, third day, last run, going fast. Light was bad, a lot of snow on the ground. 50 yards from the bottom, I crashed and burned. Literally tumbling down the mountain, did a 3-point landing with my head and 2 thumbs. Broke the right thumb, sprained the left thumb, finished up surgery 5 days later. And now I have a little extra time on my hands. What do? I finish a special report that I've been dying to finish for a long time, which is a way for me to get to my next book. It's a preview of the book. You can find it on renegade.com. On the very beginning of the homepage at the top, there's a banner that says B2B Special Report. I would love it if you took a look at this and let me know what you thought. I think you're going to find a lot of value in it.
Okay, we're back, and we've been talking about the way your business, at least the way you're managing your team has changed, and of course your management with your peers. I mean, all your peers are now, and the CMO role is such a complicated role to begin with, and you've been there now 3 years. Let's talk about some of the things, and this might be an interesting one. You helped this company sort of transform from a brand standpoint. And a lot of that, I bet, had to do with face-to-face conversations with your CFO and your head of sales and all these people. Can you imagine trying to go through that process today virtually?
Oh, yeah, not at all. I think the obstacles would almost be too formidable to overcome, if not the opportunity to build those relationships, those key strategic discussions, and even building the political capital with your colleagues early on in order to help make it happen. Yeah, it is fortuitous that this was not happening during the beginning stages of my career here.
Well, and let's go back then. And I think political capital is such an interesting thing. And I've had this conversation with CMOs is, which problem do you solve first? Do you solve the demand problem or the brand problem? And I think I recall that one of the ways that you gained some political capital, correct me if I'm wrong, was to get some early successes. And I hope I'm not making that up.
Oh, no, you're not. I think as a general rule, keep it focused and keep it simple, related to where you can find some wins quickly. Wins and value have a tendency to build upon themselves over time, and then you get the compound effect of the bigger picture that you're starting to pull together. And I think there's a level of embracing an iterative process along the way that comes with that helped me be successful in that transformation, as opposed to trying to do too many big bang moves all at once.
Right. So let me ask you this. So do you remember what some of those quick wins were that helped you get the political capital?
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about the brand side or the demand side. My answer to that is both. At the end of the day, the good brand drives demand. And so it's really a demand problem. If you got a great brand experience and no demand, it sort of is irrelevant. But one of the misconceptions that was, I think, generally thought to be true within our function or within our company when I started was that construction's solely a handshake personal business. The only way buyers would be comfortable purchasing technology in this industry is doing business with people that they've built a relationship with, can shake their hand, look them in the eye, and that trust has been developed over a certain period of time.
As you're talking about that, it's so amazing because at this moment you couldn't do
any of those things. Yes,
I know, right? But now I remember our conversation completely. Thank you for that little reminder. And that was why I wanted to get you on the show, because you were in an industry, your entire sales team was used to going on, to the construction companies and, sort of in a good old boy way. And I'm sure there were women involved too, but this is the way the business had always been done. And I seem to recall that you were able to sort of drive leads through, sort of some of the more things with content marketing and other things that you did to drive leads. And so ultimately you ended up with a significant number of leads. And that was how you sort of helped people go, oh, wait, this could work.
Yes, absolutely. And so what some of those low-hanging fruit opportunities was to believe, and I've spent 15 years doing B2B marketing in gritty industrial industries. It was the story at my previous leadership role as well. Our industry is different. They still do business this way, despite everyone else doing business that way. So when I came, there weren't real clear call to actions on the website. There wasn't a single form for anybody to fill out. There wasn't a chat feature. There wasn't even a contact me button. It was a directory with phone numbers, some office locations, and some very basic rudimentary brochure-like pieces of information.
figured out the secret to your success. Start with a very low bar.
That's part of it.
Man,
Don't
genius.
dismiss that.
I'm telling you, website mailing addresses in it. Hey guys, what do you think about having a call to action? A what? Wow. So I imagine then, that those things probably produce some immediate results.
Yes. So, again, huge brand opportunity, huge messaging opportunity, huge content strategy. You could spend months figuring all that out, but why spend months figuring that out and not taking action on the things that you can literally do within a couple hours?
Right.
And so changed read more to contact me, deployed forms, put in a quick chat feature, got folks that were on the team at the time trained on interacting with chat. And crazy enough, just within the first few hours of deploying some of those fundamental 101 type of capabilities, people interacted with those digital channels. They reached out, drove leads, and within the first 24 hours, there were already things with dollars being put into the pipeline from the sales team that were getting those qualified leads handed over.
So how long before, so you do that, and then that people go, oh, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. Look, we're getting leads in here, and those leads are going to turn into revenue. What were some of the bigger steps after that? Because that's certainly the low-hanging fruit, and that builds some political capital. What was next?
Then the next thing to say is, okay, with where we're at and what we've done to date, it's only going to take us so far. And then you put the business case together to say, okay, if we can drive a certain, call it like the tempo of the demand engine inside of marketing, we create a certain tempo and a certain throughput of dollars based on a level of scale and sophistication that we can get to, that is then going to pay for itself in a reasonably short period of time. And so part of the early steps was not only creating those channels for prospective customers to interact with us digitally, but was also then putting in place the ability to capture KPIs around it. So you can go back to the CFO, you can go back to the CEO and actually say, hey, here's kind of cool things that are happening, but if we model this out, much like a sales team would model out a market opportunity, we model this out from a functional perspective and have a clear return on marketing investment opportunity that we can articulate. It's a sound business investment to continue to grow and nurture those things that you've started. So that was phase 2.
Okay. And it sounds like, again, you were able to increase the pipeline and do all those good things. At some point in time, there was a decision to sort of update the brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how did you, that's a big step, because why do we need to do that?
How did you know they asked me that question?
Yeah, it ain't broken. Why do we need to fix it?
Well, so part of the attraction for this opportunity as well wasn't just the starting sort of at a basic level and having success on some of those basic 101 functions, but what the company was genuinely trying to do from a change perspective, not only for us as a function, but also what we were trying to do for an industry. And so what we're trying to do was pull intercompany value from a supply chain perspective through to construction, whereas traditionally we've offered point solutions to individual customers that acted within that broader supply chain. And so it was and is and remains an ambitious goal that we have as a company. And if we weren't going to invest in our ability to articulate that story really well and capture the attention of the market and the buyers that were yearning for that type of solution, all those things we were doing from a product and platform perspective were going to be for naught.
Right, right.
And so we needed those provocative moments in time to be differentiated and get people's attention about who we were as a company that they otherwise never would have given us if we were maintaining the status quo.
So give me an example of provocative and something that you did that helped, get the brand attention.
It was really around disrupting the way the business was done in the way that we defined it for the previous 40 years. And so we have a leading position on all these heavy materials. All our technology systems are the way in which most of those materials in the US are produced and delivered. And it was all very much reliant on having an automated process within a company. All this data was sitting in our systems, and then we printed it out on this 5-part paper form on dot matrix printers and gave it to a driver in a truck that then distributed the copies of this information to all the other actors at the project job site. They all took their pen and put little notes on their yellow version or their pink version or their white version. And then everyone fat-fingered all this information back into their respective systems. And we created that reality.
Oh my God. Now, I just want to acknowledge that I'm really hoping I have some listeners that have no idea what a dot matrix printer is. And for them, they can look it up, but it was something, it's back there. It goes with a horse and buggy. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about how you move from horse and buggy in dot matrix printers to a new sort of all digital, all cloud, all the time supply chain management. So stay with us.
I'm back. I'm not going to talk about skiing, but I do want to talk about the special report that you will find on renegade.com. There is so much meat in this, in the 12 steps to a more effective B2B brand strategy in 2020, that there are probably some folks out there that think I'm crazy to put that out there in front of a firewall. But I'm really hoping to get feedback from some of you all on the report, perhaps what's missing, because again, the book is going to be developed against this outline, but fleshing it out. There might be some guests that could help fill in some of the areas. You may disagree with some of the things. I'm really interested in your opinion on this piece, and your engagement with it will really help make the book that much stronger. So you'll find it on renegade.com. Very top, there's a banner that says 12 steps to a more effective B2B brand strategy. Take a look.
Okay, we're back. And so Ed, I want to sort of help folks so that as they see this and understand some of the things, the critical steps for you that you had to take internally in order to get, you're talking about a product transformation, but you're also talking about sort of a new mindset for the organization, and you're also trying to get your customers to do business differently. That's a lot of change. And you have a lot of people to help bring along with it, both internally and externally. What were some of the key steps that you took that helped with this, not only transforming your business, but helping you transform the way your customers do business?
Yeah, right before the break, we were talking about actually training the industry for over 40 years on how to do business. And then we were the ones that were coming back to them to say, there's a better way of doing business than what we've kind of created together for the last 40 years. And so that is not an easy feat, and we needed to have a compelling story to keep all those interactions digital and have digital collaboration amongst all the people that are involved in creating the universe around us. So it really started with creating some aha moments inside of our company. I would ask my peers on the executive team, if you had to describe what our company is in 7 words or less, or capture the essence of what our company is, what is that? If you had to do it in less than 30 seconds, how would you respond? And then more broadly surveyed the workforce, from the managerial leaders throughout the organization all the way through to every role or function that wanted to participate, and ask similar questions. What kind of company do you work for? How would you describe what it is that we do, etc. And then, most importantly, went out and talked to our customers and had that same level of engagement with regards to how they understood us as a company. There was an ENPS, a net promoter score effort that was part of that.
Sure.
And I think the first enlightenment was the lack of continuity in any of the responses amongst any of the groups.
And let's pause there for a second. I'm going to remind the listeners that if they go to renegade.com and click on the banner, they're going to find the B2B strategy, brand strategy guide. And in that, it will talk about the need for doing employee surveys and getting it so that all your employees can actually describe the company in 8 words or less. This is the power of having a purpose-driven story statement. And what's so interesting about what you did, Ed, is not only did you ask employees and find that out, but you got the executive team and they couldn't describe the company. And as you use 7, I give people 8.
You're generous.
I know, in 8 words or less. And then, of course, talking to your customers, both to understand satisfaction, but also to get a sense of their understanding of the brand and what they think of you as a, and Net Promoter is an aspect of that. I think there are a lot of other measures that are relevant. So when you got to this process, you do all this thing, what were the 8 words or less? You gave it 7. What was the summary statement of your discovery?
So where we settled, and it's the one that we use today, and it's been wildly and vastly embraced throughout all our people, and that is, together we build amazing. Together
we build amazing. All right, I'm going to just break this down the way I do this for our clients. This is what Renegade does, by the way. We come up with this kind of thing and do all this research. So together, first of all, yeah, we're united. So it's a clear embracing of employees, customers, and community, if you will. So that's a great word. And then you got we, just reinforcing that. It's not about us. It's about the team. Build a nice reference to your construction industry, and then this aspirational goal, let's do something amazing. So yeah, that hits a lot of buttons in terms of trying to build an effective purpose-driven story statement. I'm curious, because one of the litmus tests for this kind of thing is how you activated against that. In other words, how did you make that promise real?
So the together, as you understood it, is true. The other element or the essence of that word was bringing together all the people on a project so that they could do more together than they could on their own, and the shared prosperity when they're working collaboratively with digital tools in order to do more with less. So part of the reinforcement of that story was not just the we and us in partnership with our customers and the community, but more specifically pointing to our collaboration platform and the technology products that underpinned the capability for people to actually do amazing as a result of how we're acting on these projects.
You actually snuck in
an orchestrated way.
Yeah, you snuck in a product story in the middle of your purpose-driven story statement. Together we build, because it's about collaboration and a collaboration platform. So as you roll this thing out into, how did you make sure that your employees actually understood what it meant?
Yes, and so we, in conjunction with this statement, had a reimagined brand celebration. And so one of the things from a leadership perspective is I didn't want to be the new person coming in and saying, this is so much better than what you had in the past, but you've been a really successful company for the 43 years you existed, prior to Ed Rusch ever showing up and being part of the team. And I don't mean that to sound negative. Actually, I mean it in a very positive way, because one of the things I wanted to be cognizant of is all the good things that existed that allowed me to start day one with a great foundation to build off of.
Sure.
And so we talked about it from a reimagined brand perspective, because we weren't throwing out all the old, but we were actually building on the leading position we had in the market and taking it and moving it forward. And ultimately it was described as a sort of pivot or an act two in the story of our company. Part of helping tell this story was actually going through and finding customer heroes and having our story really be a collection of their success stories, of how they've used technology and construction to transform their businesses, and to bring all our employees together with a big sort of kickoff party that we did at the concert hall here in Birmingham for our headquarters constituents. We repeated that with a live telecast through all the various offices that we have throughout the world, and did an introduction of the story, did a big toast to where we've been, built a lot of enthusiasm for where we were going as a team, and just equipped everyone with the resources and the background and the pocket guides and all the information about this new story that we were trying to tell, so that they can go out there and talk to the customers in the market with the type of confidence that we needed them to do.
Yeah. Again, as you're listing off these things, I'm thinking, boy, if you were about to do a brand launch, you just have to put the thing on hold, because you couldn't.
would.
A lot of the things that you just described, you could not do in today's environment. So, timing's everything, Ed. And
in a lot of ways.
You've been able to do it. I'm going to go back to a question asked. So I love the expression, together we build amazing. I love the fact that amazing is a very high bar. So it really, and it can be, it could definitely be inspirational. And if something isn't amazing, it's a pretty quick litmus test that, I don't know, we didn't really, and there's a lot of dimensions of that. So the one thing that I always worry about with a great language like this is that it is just words, right? And your customer stories are certainly one of the ways to show that it wasn't just words. But I'm wondering if that may be enough, but were there any other things that you did to make this sort of, and I'll give you an example is, if suddenly employees are compensated differently because this is about collaboration and teamwork and doing amazing things. And so now we're going to have group compensation, or for customers, we're going to include in our evaluation, are we getting closer to amazing or something, that you start to do real concrete things, because the language is great. But it also begs the question, what are you doing to make it real?
Yes, I think there's three different dimensions that do make it real. Part of it is just the end result of the projects that our customers and our technologies are used to help build. So, for example, you have that super neat Viking ship looking dome stadium in Minnesota that the Vikings play in. You have the Apple campus out in California. You have the Burj Khalifa there in the Middle East. Well, those are testaments to building amazing, because those are signature projects that are outcomes of what it is we do. That's the easy one. So highlighting those projects. Secondly, from a KPI or value perspective, it's pretty amazing on the inverse that the second largest industry in the planet is 21 out of 22 industries ranked from a technology and digitization perspective.
Right.
And so the amazing is also in the types of transformative results that happen when you can actually adopt technology and make a meaningful impact on productivity.
Yep.
And so the more productive the industry is, the more output everyone in the communities that they serve realize as a result of it. Just 3% productivity increases in construction would, for example, fund 2,500 new schools being built.
And that would be good.
So the amazing is
Right.
also the impact our industry can make on the communities.
So as we think about this and we start to put a nice bow on this, I'm curious if when you thought, God, this is really going to work, what were some of the signals that said, oh my God, this is really good?
If you had to have one measurement, it's adoption. Adoption of the platform that builds community, because you need community within the industry in order to collaborate. So
your sense of the number of, say, suppliers that are on the platform, that are working with your customers, that together, that you've created this sort of ecosystem, all on the platform. And so the success of that is ultimately the business success. I'm wondering if there's any, from a marketing standpoint, when there was a moment where, there's always the anecdote of a customer talking to the CEO, goes, I really like that language, or I like what you did over here when you did it. They finally feel the power of marketing. Was there a moment like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're taking this digital story out to customers. There's sort of big opportunities now that we're having with different audiences within the customers that are the buyers of these larger enterprise type of opportunities. And so we're in a meeting, we're doing a discussion with a big sort of regional operator. It's a multi-million-dollar opportunity. And it initially came in sort of through the historic lens of a point solution, which was telematics in the truck. And then because we're getting really good at the next level of opportunity, that you plug those point solutions into the platform, it unlocks this whole new dimension of value that you can't get otherwise. And we're slaying those paper tickets that we helped create over decades, right? And so we started showing them that when you kind of interface what it is that you're looking for with the power of the collaborative platform, and then we were able to take information from the systems and connect the dots about their operations in a way that they couldn't themselves, you could just see the light bulb moments trigger throughout the room. In fact, the CEO of this organization was part of the meeting. He starts getting on his phone and is texting away. And our sales leader is sitting there going, oh gosh, we lost him already, right? But what he's really doing is texting the CFO and say, get in here, get in here, get in here.
We need this now.
This is the type of information that I've been asking for a long time. And it looks like now we can finally get it. To which the natural final pivot off of that is, I understand the essence of this. Together, we build amazing thing that you're describing. It's a lot more powerful than I would have imagined, but now that I've seen it, it's transformative.
So as we wrap up the show, we started with COVID and the challenges that has created for workforce and how you're working to overcome them. We then spoke quite a bit about the business transformation that you all went, both in terms of the product moving from this point-to-point solution to really a platform that ultimately builds a community of suppliers and buyers, if you will, and a new purpose-driven story statement of together we build amazing. Now, it's here we are in March 2020, and the rules, suddenly a number of things are going to need to change. You can't do events. So I'm wondering, as we sort of wrap up the show, if the lessons that you learned, and this is a tricky question, I don't even know if it's a real one or not, but if the lessons that you learned from this experience are going to help you as you sort of deal with the new challenges that you have. As I said, I didn't know if it was even an answerable question, but maybe you start with the biggest lessons that you learned from this business transformation and this brand transformation.
Yeah, I think it's eating our own dog food to an extent. I'm a CMO in a B2B space, and I've been focused in the supply chain world for 15 years. I think taking the supply chain principles that serve companies well, and then going, there's a place within the marketing world to learn what high-performing supply chains do, and use those same things in order to be successful from a marketing perspective. And so now more than ever, it's important that supply chains are rapidly adaptable, can respond to new information quickly, can give everyone the same sort of trustworthy information to work from at the same time, so that all these moving parts can remain highly orchestrated. Well, don't you want those same capabilities within your marketing function? To be able to learn from new information and adapt quickly. Don't rigidly sort of go on some 9-month plan that you developed 3 months ago. The world changed, that plan's no longer any good. Be okay to adapt it. How do you sort of get the right information, the correct information into the hands of all the people within the marketing function in a way that they can all act in unison together, whether we're all in the same office or working out of campers and apartments and libraries hundreds of miles away. That's really what I'm learning, marrying marketing and my supply chain geekness together.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think I can attempt to summarize where we've been and what this means for all of you. You got to have a good brand. And if you don't have a good brand, it's going to be a problem. And obviously your brand story and your product story need to come together. If you're trying to transform an industry, you need to transform internally. That's one of the things that Ed talked about, is that we're asking our customers to become digital. Well, we need to do the same. Now, looking ahead, I think the notion that whatever plan you had, you have to throw out the window. I think to some extent that's true, in that if you had a heavy event plan or direct mail plan to the office or some other things like that, that's going to be problematic. Even outdoor, it's funny, we were talking with a client about doing an outdoor purchase where we would buy near the headquarters, even though it was B2B, but it would definitely get the attention of a very large client. Well, they're probably not going to work right now. So that's not going to work either anyway. So it is a time that really requires some nimble agility. If you're not already don't have a strong digital muscle, well, you're going to earn it now. And I think there are a lot of people out there who have it. The thing we can answer, and I think we're going to do more episodes on it, is what do you do with your event dollars? Where's that going to go? But we're going to save that for another episode. Ed, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
And to the listeners, thank you. I'm grateful that you spent this time with us. As always, you know how to get a hold of me. If you have ideas on what you're going to do with your event dollars, let me know. You can find us at renegadethinkersunite.com, and my email's there, and you know how to get a hold of me. Anyway, until next time, keep those Renegade thinking caps on and strong, and stay safe out there.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.